probably wait a few minutes for Rick Foster.
Yeah, he said he was coming on. I got email from him. I just sent Lois a message. I have to get her in just a phone. Okay, I'm also taping it for the minutes, so I'll do that when you're ready to go.
Pardon me?
I'm also It's my fault, not theirs. We did the pledge and I forgot them. Patricia and Rick, can you hear us? Now we got him.
No, I couldn't before.
That was on our end, sorry.
Okay, where we are on the agenda is to have the approval of the agenda. And Trudy has added an item under Merrick Road to talk about a substitute signer for the documents. And we have a motion, and it's been seconded to approve the minutes, not to approve the agenda. So let's go through with the vote again. Yes, Patricia? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
One small change on the minutes, and it's very small, but kind of important.
We're still on the agenda approval.
Oh, I thought you were just calling for approval of the minutes. My apologies.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the agenda, raise your right hand. Those against, raise your left hand. Motion passes unanimously. The next item is approval of minutes. Patricia, you have some comments?
Just one, as I said, minor change. On page 9, it's the paragraph 1, 2, 3. And it starts, Sodas Little understands and in support of the majority. Whoop. Oh, no, that's not the right one, sorry. There is, oh, it's the paragraph above that. It says that I support the majority and on board, and it should say on the board. On board sounds like we're in a ship. So if we can just make that one change, that'd be great. Minor, but it changes the meaning.
You got that, Trudy? Any other comments? Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as presented with correction.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is public comments. Hearing none, we'll move on. Unfinished business.
We should announce the phone number in case someone wants to call in for public comment. We have to give people the option to call in.
At the top of the agenda. In that box, yeah.
Okay, we'll still have we'll have a public comments section because I didn't mention the call-in number, which is 231-256-8109. So we'll wait a minute or two for that. That call would come into you, Trudy?
It would ring right there.
Right here.
Again, that's 231-256-8109. Should we move on to unfinished business? Judy, is there any?
I think this, the item 2 on the action items was supposed to be habitat update unless Jonathan has something else on the phone script. So I'll do this under unfinished business, the habitat update. The house in Sutton's Bay, I was notified by Wendy Urbine that the first 3 former offers walked away on this last round, and then they had an offer of $45,000. That was countered at $36,000 after the property was inspected and the review of the environmental reports. And then they agreed to a $40,000 purchase, and the closing on that house in Sutton's Bay is supposed to be done this Friday. So that's the latest update on that. So hopefully that property will get sold and redeveloped there, and then we can start collecting the tip on that for the 5 years.
And the net proceeds would be like that minus 17,000, right?
Yeah.
So there would be 23,000 or so to go towards Maple City.
Right.
Okay. All right, so then I guess we're going into item 1, discussion items, the Bayview property discussion. Lois?
Okay. Thanks for allowing me to come in. So when I say Bayview, are you all familiar with what that parcel is? You're all understanding that? Okay. So I've served on the Housing Action Committee since the beginning, and this parcel might have some possible application with some of the things we've learned. Maybe I should take this off, get that out of the way. And then I saw that the sign went up as it was for sale. Of course, for sale, all 145 acres, which is more than anybody needs for affordable housing here. So there are different parcels within that. Yeah, sorry, I'm all discombobulated here. And you have this drawing that shows the different parcels. So the one that to me seems most applicable is the one way at the north end, which is bounded by Dumas Road and the Leelanau Trail. So I started looking back at the history on it, and the village has made an attempt to talk to the previous owners when Wally Delamater was there in 2010 and again in 2014 with no luck in getting all the various owners together to talk about releasing it from the PUD and going to a zoning designation that would make it more easily developed. So then I was also at the county meeting where you were explaining land bank and brownfield and how there are authorities or as an underpinning to try to get properties that are sort of stuck into redevelopment. I thought, that sort of rang a bell, and there might be some ways to help this move along. So that's how I'm kind of ending up here to see what happens next. I started to make a list of pros and cons on the property. Again, in my list of things here. So under the pros for this parcel, it's been undeveloped and just sitting for over 15 years. The village is willing to enter into a discussion and trying to release the PUD and getting it into a zoning that would work. It's a large parcel, it's within the village limits. It has access to the village water and sewer treatment plant. When Bayview was first proposed, the sewer system, our municipal waste system was at capacity. And to expand it, they doubled the size of it, but they required that the Bayview development prepay all their sewer hookups. So there are over 500 prepaid sewer hookups in this development. There's a sewer line location indicated in the approved PUD that would go down the old railroad right-of-way, shows an area for a lift station, so you don't have to start discussing with property owners where you're going to put a sewer line, because it's already on the map. It's available for high-density development. It would be usable for multifamily rentals or for studio-size apartments. There's quite a bit of wetlands on this property, so it looks like a big acreage. I calculated about 80 acres, but at least a third of it is in wetlands, which is good and it's bad. It's, impacts the value of the property. It's 2.5 miles from the school, which has capacity for more students, adjacent to the Leelanau Trail, adjacent to M22, so it would have, availability of beta transportation, close to employment. Certainly within the village of Suttons Bay, we know that we have businesses that run on a limited schedule in the summer because we can't hire employees. We're close to wineries and ag facilities that need more employees. We're close to groceries and medical facilities, so it checks off a lot of things that are already on the housing actions checklist, or what for best use. The cons, it's part of an old PUD, which is kind of a tangle and has some difficulties in getting out of it. There are multi-owners involved, so you have to get them all at the table. There's wetlands. There's a mound on the property, if you've ever looked at it, that's actually the rubble from the old Frigid Foods packing plant. They hauled it there, piled it up, covered it with some dirt, so it's got grass growing on it right now, but you would have to remove that in some way to build on the site. So a zoning change is required, rubble removal, there's cost to clean up, cost to construct the sewer line and the lift station. The seller wants an easement to access other parts of the development that are uphill from it. So you have to find financing and you have to find a developer. So, but those are all things that the land bank would be useful in trying to address it. I see it as a project to look forward, into greater depth, because what we are seeing is people building 4 houses or 10 houses, affordable housing. It's a drop in the bucket to the 600 units that we need in Leelanau County to really tackle the problem. So I'm asking for your help and seeing if we can go forward to a next step, maybe with a subcommittee to look at this in more depth, try to get some other expertise together, and it seems like it's worth investing time in it because the rewards are more than just 10 houses, So if you're gonna have to do some work to get there, but if you can build 125 to 200 units. I did run into someone who's done low-income rentals in Colorado and further out west. He suggested that you need 125 to 200 units so you can afford an on-site manager, an on-site maintenance person, which makes a lot of sense for a unit like this. So it seems like a big reach, but I think it might be worth it because of the rewards. Questions? Suggestions? Am I all wet?
Any idea how much would that parcel cost?
I don't, and that would be, because they want 2.2 million for the whole 145 acres, out of reach, but this is encumbered, as I said, by some difficulties. It seems like the seller might be motivated because if you got this off their neck, the other uphill parcels have more potential for high-end houses. So you get it kind of out of the way.
But then how does that affect the existing PUD?
You would have to get everybody to cooperate to release it out of the PUD. It's an encumbrance for the part that I'm looking at as well as the other part. So I did have a talk with Jeff Roth, who's the family involved in Frigid Foods for years and years. They had the cottage down the beach from me when I was a kid. So that was easy to talk to Jeff. He didn't say no. He said, just keep calling me if you got plans or something else going on. So a subcommittee perhaps, and try to put some heads together on this.
Trudy, would that qualify for brownfield money?
I don't know. Lois, is this the property that Mr. Baldwin had wanted to develop years ago?
I don't think so.
That's a different piece.
The one that that's the previous, what do they call it, Harbor Heights, right?
Yes.
No, that's the previous condo development.
Okay.
Not this
That's what
one.
I'm thinking of, that.
Yeah, right.
Environmental.
Yeah.
And that one. We would have to take a look at it and see if there's environmental issues to, pursue with grants or loan funds with the state or whatever. I don't know if there would be. You mentioned that
I thought maybe
remnants from the Frigid Food building
Right.
is deposited up there.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be something that would probably need to be checked out.
John Gallagher mentioned that we've got the land bank, or the county has a lien on 24 parcels, tax lien. Is that part of this part?
No.
No?
I think they have perhaps a lien on a couple of the units right down on the waterfront that were never built.
Yeah.
He said 24 parcels.
Yeah, well.
There, and maybe
he
something
referred
up
to
on
them as
top?
Air condos, because they're lower and upper level. They
Okay.
can be built, but there's nothing built there yet. And you're not actually purchasing the land either, because
Mhm.
That goes back to the unpaid taxes on the property and everything, but that's not through the land bank. The land bank never took those
Right,
properties.
right.
That's still in the treasurer's hands.
Trudy, what about that housing commission that you talked about, that you had a meeting yesterday?
Yeah, Lois is a member of that, the Housing Action Committee,
Mhm.
and heard her presentation yesterday. We didn't take any action on it, but there was questions as to, you know,
Mhm.
what could be done there, and perhaps we need to look at getting some developers to look at the property and see what they might be able to do with it.
Mhm.
Anybody else, any comments?
Yes,
Patricia?
yes, thank you. First off, Lois, thank you for bringing creative ideas. I really appreciate it. And I do think it's worth exploring. This could be an opportunity. And for all of the positive reasons, the pros that you expressed. The cons provide a little challenge, but I think it's well worth at least exploring and seeing what the cost would be, um, and how we might move forward on something like this.
I would agree. I think it's worth exploring.
Mhm.
You never know unless you ask and try.
That's my thought.
I don't see a downside of exploring this option.
Mhm. I mean, the only, when you say, how do you value this property? It would almost be like what the Conservancy does when they're valuing properties. They have to have an appraisal done on the property. So, I mean, I don't know how you go about hiring an appraisal. Does the land bank ever do that?
Yes, we've done
Okay,
that.
okay. And as I said, the rewards, it seems like, are worth the effort because you could build enough units that you really make a dent in our demand for housing.
And you said very preliminarily, the village is open to breaking apart the PUD.
Oh, yeah, and they've tried in the past, and the current village manager, Rob, has also contacted the owners to try to get everybody to sit at the table together and agree. There are different legal opinions on if there's a sunset on that PUD. It's written without a sunset, but there was one legal opinion. It said that if there's no action, it disappears or can be changed at a certain point. So I'm not knowledgeable enough to say one way or the other.
Do we need a motion or anything to move forward? I didn't think so.
Well, do we think that this has moved far enough along? I mean, there's this whole bunch more due diligence
Oh,
that
absolutely.
isn't necessarily something that a subcommittee would need to be involved with. We would, as a government agency, we would encourage something like that. But I'm just wondering if maybe more with the housing commission that the county is involved with might push that along a little bit more. That's just an idea.
I was pleased with the endorsement from the Housing Action Committee of Housing North because I think that's the 10-county organization that's the umbrella over all of us, and they have more experience in varieties of financing and how to put together the different elements in doing difficult development. So, having them in our pocket would be good too.
Sure.
Yeah,
Lois, have you talked to Yarrow Brown yet? And how
I
they are
haven't.
on this?
Mm-mm.
I think that would be a good start.
Sure. That's easy.
She actually has been trying to set up a conversation with me and with John to talk about the land bank and how it's involved with housing. Maybe we could kind of tag that into it as well.
Sure.
Again, that's my feeling. I mean, we could move this along and put it on the agenda again next month, and this is gonna be a long-term concept.
Oh yeah,
so-
this doesn't, Well, which is exactly why it's in front of you, because it's been languishing for so long that, it just needs another push somehow.
So what would be the next step in this process, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm kind of asking you to help me. Well, starting with Yarrow Brown, I guess, seeing what she has to say. I can touch base with this person that's done large-scale rentals. I think he was suggesting that you needed a minimum of 15 acres. So I don't know if if there's a different way to split this, take off some of the hillside area, keep the wetlands. That's always a trade-off for open space, for density. Not knowing exactly what the price is on the property is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Stimson, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just thought maybe one of the first steps would be to get a environmental study, like a phase one, just
Okay.
to find out is there any mitigating factors with the land.
Mm-hmm.
Because even a developer, a bank, even a land bank, before you go into any kind of a property, what are the site recommendations for reclamation? Is it going to kill the project?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working with the land bank in Traverse City, and we're trying to buy a lot in town. They won't touch it or talk about it until we get a phase one report, and it's $2,100 or so. But that would be money well spent. That way you know your unknowns.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You don't think there was a phase one when that whole project was?
It could be, and maybe that would be a place to start and dig out
Okay.
where that phase one is. Can you have access to it?
Yeah.
That's a good question. That's a good
Wow.
point.
From 2004. How many do I look?
Yeah. Well, it could be updated. Maybe
Okay.
you find it, they update it for a small fee.
Once you find out who the previous engineering firm was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Marcus Yono, I don't even know where he is anymore.
Well, I would think those would be on file somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, the village, if they had to go through this whole PUD process, to find out if that was
Yeah.
part of the requirement in their ordinance that they had to submit an
Yeah.
assessment.
Yeah, their records seem to be somewhat in disarray. When I showed Rob this, he didn't think he had the drawings at all. Like,
When the PUD was approved, was
Uh-huh.
there a mix of housing
yes.
that would be closer to the workforce housing or affordable housing that we're hoping to put on there?
That's what this is. This
That-
is the more
that
dense
was-
home housing sites, yeah.
Okay,
But, they show it as individual footprints. I never have seen anything more than that, other than the footprints, no architectural rendering or anything like that. Not like the condos on the waterfront where they were really excited about building those first, next to the marina.
and this
Mm-hmm.
is not, where's the parcel on this?
That is the parcel. If you look,
It looks
compare
like
that
there's-
to this,
Right,
yeah, I think this is there's another sheet that connects, that gives you the uphill part.
so they don't show plating or anything on this 90 acres,
80 acres,
80 acres.
only what you have, I think.
And where is it on this?
Might come up and get closer to you.
Guess it would be going both that direction. Wouldn't it be this part?
Yep, that part is
Well, the bay is
right
here.
here, and this is the trail right here,
And where's the park?
this parcel.
Well, it looks like it's all
Yeah.
set up for individual units.
Right, and the PUD, it was approved that way.
And that was gonna be for affordable housing in that
More
section.
affordable. It was not the high-end view property up on the top or the waterfront property. So, and I've never seen anything more from Bayview explaining price points, relative to the other units. I don't think they've gotten that far. I think they were just
Okay.
putting all this stuff on paper.
So certainly we're encouraged by what you're attempting to do, but in terms of a subcommittee or anything like that, I think maybe if you can try to get
Okay.
more of the loose ends,
Yeah, which loose end, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
and
keep going on your
ultimately comes down
encouragement.
to financial also, and whether or not this is something that could partner with
Uh-huh.
some organization.
Oh, absolutely.
And
There has to be that partnership.
perhaps well, it depends what form it would take, but maybe the Grand Traverse Band
Mhm,
might be considered
mhm.
or something like that for assisting.
Sure. Well, I mean, you
Pat-
don't want to
Patricia?
eliminate anybody from the table.
Sure.
No, I think what Lois has done an awful lot of the pre-work so far, and we're asking her to do a whole lot more. I think this is an opportunity for the land bank to show a little leadership. I'd like to see it on the agenda for next month and to look at ways that we might be, when Lois comes back, ways that we might be able to assist and actually take a real look at whether or not this would be something that we could do in the land bank. It certainly is the kind of project that is what we were created for, in a way. And it certainly addresses a major housing problem here. I like the fact that it would be mixed workforce housing or young family housing with what's already there, so it doesn't stand out as this is a low-income unit, even if we're doing the high-density housing in that area. But I just think it really involves our stepping up and helping where we can based on Lois's additional exploration and discussion with Yara and others, and taking a solid look at it next month as to how we might move forward in leadership helping.
I agree. So Trudy will work with making sure that's on next month's agenda and work with Lois
To get here on time and not come flapping in at the last minute. So there's a development that happened on Mackinac Island that was promoted, or it was a web seminar from Housing North. And they adopted a rental qualification set of rules from Aspen, Colorado. And one of the things that was mentioned from the village council meeting one time when I was there was that they didn't want to build more short-term rentals. Well, the Aspen qualifications that were adopted on Mackinac Island say that the units can't be rented for less than 3 months. Anyone that rents a unit cannot own property anywhere else on Mackinac Island, or you could say in the area. So you eliminate those people who think, oh, I'll just rent this small unit over here and then put my house on the waterfront in short-term rental and make a boatload of money for a season. You have to try to figure out how to set some rules so that people that are pre-qualified to be tenants in these units. And I thought that was a great idea. So thanks for listening and thanks for the encouragement. Yeah.
So hopefully a great positive note.
Yeah, right. I have a few things on my plate. Maybe I'm getting my hands in too many things right now, but it seems like it's worth it.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to number 2, the home stretch update.
Morning. So, had kind of a setback with our site costs. We had a bid for getting the improvement off of M204 and then access up to the site, and then the leach field up at the top of the hill and the parking, and basically the site cost came in at $287,000. It's kind of disappointing. I had 245 figured in, including a well, so we're 30,000 plus the well over. And it's feasible that we can continue and work through that by fine tuning some of the site and maybe getting a little bit more of a detail on, Alpers so that he can give us a better bid. There's asphalt that has to be worked in there. One thing that I can say is beneficial to having a private site without having to pay, monthly sewer and water to a municipality is that I can take that expense and amortize it over 40 years with a long-term loan. Whereas if we had a monthly expense, that would take away from our income. And you kind of weigh the two, what's the best scenario? I think it's kind of a wash. I could buy a piece of land for, 100,000 or 150,000 and still have another 100 or so thousand in site work. So we're still at the same place, but by having to amortize that cost over 40 years, have the developer pay for it, and not have the tenants pay the water and the sewer or the developer, that helps the project. So I'd like to move forward. I don't know of any other property in the village or in Leelanau County that isn't within an area of residents that are going to say, no, we don't want affordable housing, and no, we don't want to give you a pilot against the property. I mean, the NIMBYism is through the roof, as we know. So having a site up on a hill that's not really walkable, it's where I think people would put affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. Maybe something like this mixed use could be more palatable, but I'm willing to give it a shot and continue to go forward. And if we could make that land agreement signed today, then I can take that and further the grant process with the Federal Home Loan Bank. I'm not painting a rosy picture. It's going to take time, maybe another year until we get something more concrete and say, okay, we're going to be in the ground on this project. But I'm still pursuing it, and I'm asking if we can execute the document that transfers the property into an escrow account until I can get the performance of the financing put in place. That'd be my preference.
At the last meeting, I thought that there was like a 2-week deadline for you to qualify for financing, providing that you had this signed documents for the land ownership. Mm-hmm. Since that didn't happen, did that kick you out of the funding? So you have to wait another year for funding?
So be it. I mean, what other projects are being pursued for affordable housing? This is something that we have to continue to do. And that's not to say that there'll be other opportunities for rural development grants or financing between now and the one grant that I'm trying to get for $500,000 for this project. Putting all our eggs in one basket on one financing mechanism doesn't make sense. I've got to keep everyone, looking at the project. By having the land control, that makes it even more enticing to anybody looking at it to help us fund the project.
And when you costed this out, you were hoping for a pilot program.
That's correct.
And the state of Michigan, the Congress is working on something where they would, with workforce housing type of arrangements, they would would have the townships costed out at 18 mills, not the 36 mills. Would that change your calculations?
No, but that's still another step I have to go through where I would actually go to the jurisdiction that is the taxing authority and request a pilot based on 6% of revenue or shelter rents. So whether it's 18 or 36, doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah, and that's another step that I have to do to further the project along. I could only attend so many meetings, and I've got other projects that I'm trying to going through it with the Village of Honor, the City of Traverse City. And everyone seems to have their first Monday, third Friday, of the month, and they kind of fall in together. But I'm all over the place, and to be able to get that pilot, to be able to get this land under control, it just gives me more of a validity going in front of these municipalities to get what we need to make the project work.
Okay. Comments, anybody?
Mrs. Gallo, you've had a chance to review all these documents, right?
Yes.
I know John's been working with the county's legal counsel. I see Tim Perone has developed these documents. Any thoughts, comments, concerns with these documents?
A question I actually had, John, is the escrow agreement, is it my understanding that the deeds are going to be executed but not recorded? We're going to hold those. So you can use that as leverage documentation, whatever, for what you need to apply for. But we're not actually going to transfer the property.
No, but it puts me in the driver's seat whether or not I can execute that agreement or not. So if it's held and I get the financing, I've proven myself, then I get the land. So that's the performance, is the ability to get it financed.
Because on the agenda today, there's 2 deeds, and I wasn't able to discuss this with John, but that was my confusion of, the first deed is from the land bank to Homestretch, but then there's also a deed from Homestretch to land bank. And I don't understand why we would need that second one if we're gonna hold the first one in the escrow document.
That's right. That's right. Unless legal counsel suggested it be done this way, where maybe they're deeding it to us to be deeded back. Maybe there was a reason for that. I wasn't part of that.
Most likely, I would imagine, is to deed it to you while the development is going on. Or, excuse me, the land bank holds it while the development is going on, so there's no taxes on it.
I see.
And then deed it out of the land bank. But I was just confused on when we need both of those deeds if we're gonna be holding them with escrow. I could always check with the attorney on that too, to see.
Typically only one deed.
So the way we have it down on the agenda is that there's an asset removal agreement with the land bank and Homestretch.
Right.
Then there's an asset purchase agreement between the land bank and Court Baumgartner for the items on the property.
Which has nothing to do with me.
Right, nothing to do with you, but there's 2 documents there that we would have to execute so that Mr. Baumgartner has time frame and can come in and get those items off the property.
Okay.
Then there's the purchase agreement with Homestretch, and then the escrow agreement and the 2 quitclaim deeds.
We can start working through each one of these step by step, but Trudy wanted to say something about, we amended the agenda. You wanted to talk about a substitute for John Gallagher's sign-offs.
Yeah, I had asked to put on there at the beginning of the Merritt Road is just to have another signer for the documents, and we've done this in the past in case the chair is not available at the time that the documents need to be executed. So given that John's not here today, I just thought it might be a good step to have that backup in case he's not available to sign documents and we need to proceed. So that is actually the first item.
It's a good idea, and my preference then would be, we'll talk about it, but my preference would be to either have Chet or Trudy be the substitute for that. Do we have a discussion on that?
I would think Trudy would be the logical choice, because she could have the dialogue with our legal counsel and therefore get those questions resolved before she would sign anything. I know Trudy's very diligent in doing the research before signing any documents. So I would make a motion that we authorize Trudy to be the backup person in the event Mr. Gallagher's not available.
I would second that.
Is there discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion carries unanimously. So this would be effective like now, right? So that you would, okay.
In the event John's not available.
Right.
But he may be available, so it's just a backup plan.
Okay. So let's go through 3A, the asset removal agreement. I see this has got a no later than December 31st, 20 on it. In light of the fact that this is going to extend quite longer, is December 31st, 20 still a date we want to keep in here?
If I could say, that agreement probably for the removal, no bearing on me whatsoever. I think it's just between you and Baumgartner, because we haven't executed any agreements on the land as of yet.
Well, actually, there is one. The first document, the asset removal agreement.
That's what we're
between
talking
the land bank and Homestretch.
Oh, I thought it was Baumgartner, I'm sorry.
That's a second agreement.
This one is the agreement where Homestretch is going to pay the land bank $5,000 for us to take care of getting all those assets out of there.
So there's the fly in the ointment, because my thought is that I wouldn't be paying the 5,000 unless I had the financing in place. If I pay the 5, I can't get the financing, we walk away, we're out the 5, and the structure's removed, which I don't know that has any value, but so my thinking was, if you want to undo an agreement so that it's just between you and the removal, maybe that won't work though. If I pay the 5,000 for the removal, then all I've done is remove the structure and I still don't have the land. Is that the understanding?
Yeah, the land is $1.
Yeah, yeah.
And
John, did you?
the last month's minutes, John Gallagher did mention that the 5,000 probably wouldn't take place until you get all your financing. So
Right.
that was his understanding.
Okay,
But step one would be to go with Corey here and get the property dismantled and done away with. So does corporate counsel still want us to enter into this agreement?
I was going to ask, John, because your attorneys looked at these documents, and they approved them.
he prepared them.
No.
No,
Our-
He didn't.
Our attorney.
Oh, they are?
They might have been the first drafts that went to our attorney, but our attorney didn't review them and got it ready.
Okay, okay. I know I sent them to our attorney and he didn't have any feedback.
Because this document requires your signature.
Yeah, and I've seen them. I have them here. I have them ready to pull up.
This doesn't impede your desire to get the land tied up with you so that you can acquire that extra point and all that.
Right.
This is secondary,
Okay,
right?
right, that,
Is this something, since we're here, we can do, or would we rather table this one would John Gallagher want us to tie up that 5,000 to substantiate our position to going into the sale for $1?
That all goes back to the original agreement with Homestretch, with your original agreement to pay $5,000. Later on the agenda, we have the purchase agreement with Homestretch, which thinks it's for $1. If we do that one for $5,000, does that mess you up? I think that was the discussion last time, is that it had to be the $1 on the actual purchase agreement.
right.
But since you're still looking for financing, does that change things?
I guess what could be done is I could get authorization from my board to give you a check for $5,000. And then we could execute these agreements, and be done with it. The only problem is if I don't get the financing, we lose the 5,000 regardless, unless it's refundable. And that was the whole intent originally, is that we would pay 5,000 for the land regardless. But since the grants are written such that if it's donated land for $1, then we get the points and we get the financing. So it's kind of an end run. I know we talked about that before. You didn't like it. I'm still a believer in it, but I don't have the $5,000 authorization from my board to hand over right now. And that's where I was saying we will pay the 5,000 for the removal, or i.e. the land, once we get the financing.
Which is a
Unknown.
long ways off.
Could be a year off, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, just from what you're saying here today, if we might be better off to just do the asset purchase agreement and bill of sale with Mr. Baumgartner for the $2,000, have him remove the stuff from the property. And you're in no hurry, right, for us today to approve these other documents?
The pressure's been put off of me because of the grant cycle having lapsed. I didn't meet the first deadline. So within the next month, if we could finalize it, next 2 months, that's fine.
So if we went in that direction, that allows us to get a payment of $2,000 from Mr. Baumgartner. He's got to the end of the year to remove the stuff from the property. We can still talk about, if we're selling this to you, $5,000.
Right.
And
Right.
if not, we have a clean piece of property to move forward.
One thing that maybe was in John's thought process, John Gallagher, was that the dollar and the 5,000 go hand in hand, and if we sign the dollar one, we lose our leverage if we don't have the 5,000. And we do have costs we have, and this is one way of recouping the county's cost in this project, be it unpaid property taxes. So I just want to bring that up and see how everybody else feels about that. I don't want to speak for John when he put these two together, but I know he needed to put that deal together for $1 to make that part feasible, so.
My thought was just to consider items B and C with Mr. Baumgartner, not anything with Homestretch at this time.
Yeah, but when we get to the dollar agreement, that's where I'm concerned that.
Well, that's item A.
Yeah, so we're saying,
Or
well, Trudy, you're
excuse me,
saying
not
skip
item-
that.
Yeah, skip item A, which is for the 5,000.
So Trudy, you're saying approve only the asset purchase agreement and the
With
bill of
Mr.
sale?
Baumgartner
Yes,
and the bill of
And that's
sale
it.
with Mr. Baumgartner.
and that's it.
And that's it. Nothing with Homestretch, nothing, no agreement for $1, no agreement for 5,000, no escrow.
Well, and that sounds great. So the asset removal agreement between the land bank and Homestretch, I edited to state that for compensation, Homestretch shall pay the land bank the sum of $5,000 for removal of the assets payable upon meeting the purchase agreement contingency for which this agreement is attached.
Well, that's not exactly what we have before us.
Yeah, this is what our attorney put together. He
Yeah.
probably,
When did you
it says
run-
now, Homestretch shall pay land bank the sum of 5,000 for removal of the assets payable upon execution of this agreement.
Right, and I took that and I edited it to say,
So this.
and that's what I,
It's not recommending that,
Really doable either.
at least not now. We
But-
have to prove what our attorney agrees.
Has-
not
had-
what you do.
yeah, I get it. Has he seen that language that I inserted? I sent
When did
it
you insert it? Do you know when?
2 weeks ago and I sent it to John.
I assume he has.
But John had some confusion. He said, came in a couple days ago, send me what you want to sign. And I did, and I said, if you accept that language on there, that it would be payable upon meeting the purchase agreement contingency for which this agreement is attached. So it made the 5,000 contingent upon the performance, which is the same thing as we all talked about from the
But
beginning.
that's not what we're voting on today, and that's not what our legal counsel has drafted, so I feel uncomfortable approving anything
I agree.
without the acceptance of our legal counsel. I do like what Trudy's proposing though, and that will work for you.
That's fine, that's fine. That give your attorney a chance to review my language, I guess, if he hasn't already.
All right, so I would move that we approve the asset purchase agreement with Mr. Baumgartner as presented, pending final legal review by our legal counsel, assuming that may have happened already. We always put that in our motions to protect them.
And the bill of sale.
Well, I'm doing one at a time, or we can do both together.
Yeah, 2 motions.
Yeah, I'm doing one motion at a time.
Okay, so the asset purchase agreement with Corey Baumgartner has a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Against, raise your left hand. Motion passes unanimously.
I'll move that we approve the bill of sale with Mr. Bumgarner as presented by legal counsel.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Patricia, second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Against, raise your left hand. Motion passes unanimously. So we're going to table item 3A then, the asset removal agreement with Homestretch, right?
And 3D,
Yeah, all the rest of it.
E, F, and G, right?
No.
I think that's what
Yeah,
we're
that's,
saying,
that
right?
was my suggestion, is that we
Yeah.
don't approve anything with Homestretch at this time.
Well, then they don't get their dollar to get an extra point to qualify for the next financing round.
If we can execute that at the next meeting, then that's fine.
Okay?
Yeah, if it's not time sensitive.
It's, we've lost the time frame.
Yeah, so really, whether we do it in September or October, doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Right,
So we will move these to the October agenda.
yep.
So D, E, F, and G will go to next month. Okay, thank you for coming
You
again.
bet, thank you all. Yep.
Which brings us to item 4, budget worksheet discussion. Judy?
So we have to have a 2021 budget adopted by the end of the year. This is John's draft that he presented. And it spells out all the line items at the top for the revenue. You can see the TIF revenue, the second line item is proposed to be at $7,500. Other than that, we only have a little bit of money coming in under interest. And then he's got some very small expenses going out so that we balance it out with revenue expenditure of $7,625. And I did not get into the county system to see what our balance is right now in the account. I can get that information ready for next month's meeting.
You're talking about the fund balance,
Yes.
okay.
So I don't know if you actually want to approve this month or wait for John to go over anything else, but this is the first draft of the budget for 2021.
Doesn't this need to be finalized before the next meeting?
No. This needs to be done by the end of the year.
We're on a calendar budget year.
Yeah,
Okay, because I read in the paper that you already had your budget meeting.
That's our county budget,
that's for the county board.
Okay.
but that's also for next year.
Okay,
But that's a separate entity, and we have to, as a county board, approve a budget in October. But this is separate.
okay. It's up to you, I mean, this looks reasonable, I mean, if we want to wait till next month, that's fine too, but,
Yeah, I can't imagine that there'd be anything else to change to this. And of course, we can modify it through the year if we need to. If there's additional revenue or other expenses coming up, we can amend that budget. And this would be the budget going forward if it was approved today.
Which could be modified at any time, right?
Yes.
So therefore, I'll move that we approve the proposed budget for 2021 as presented.
second, by somebody?
I'll second.
Second by Trudy, further discussion?
As Drew said, we can amend it at any time, so this all starting if Mr. Gallagher is here in October, he can give us more detailed information. We can modify it if we have to.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes unanimously. Trudy, you had mentioned earlier that you don't know what the number, you have to look up what the fund balance is, but that fund balance could be, is anticipated to be used on projects where you might end up losing money on, like you did on the first Maple City project?
Yeah, we can use it on projects. We've used it for a number of things. We've used it for some environmental studies. We've used it to purchase land, hire consultants. We've used it for a number of things. And that project that you mentioned, yes, we did lose money on that one. We did not put a brownfield plan in place on that property to try to recover those costs, but we ended up finding out that we would not have recovered all of the funds we spent on it. But we have other properties where we actually made considerably more off of the properties. So overall, we haven't lost money, it's just on that particular project we lost.
But it would be very aggressive for us to commit a substantial portion of that balance to, let's say, Lois Bailey's deal on Dumas Road kind of thing, in anticipation of getting that money back over in property taxes over many years.
Right.
That would
right.
lose our flexibility on,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, and we definitely want John's input on that as county treasurer, as what could possibly be spent. He said in the past that we're pretty tight on the budget.
Okay. Any other business? Item 5. Claims and accounts.
There's no claims and accounts or post audit this month.
How about correspondence and communication?
Nope.
Public comments? Again, the phone number is 231-256-8109 for anybody watching on Zoom. Doesn't appear to be any, so we'll move on to member comments. Any comments from the board? None. Chairperson comments, I have nothing to add. So we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Meeting's over.
Thank you, Dan.
What's that?
I said, thank you.
Okay. This was hopefully just a one-time deal, huh?
Oh, you never
You did
know.
Oh, you seem pretty comfortable in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told Trudy the last time the two of us worked through an agenda together
No years mentioned.
Yeah.
was many decades ago. When we were on the